We're waiting for a couple of people more to join, but in the interest of time, we'll start the discussions and allow others to join as they do. We are expecting Satej from Fiat to join in 5 minutes, and also a couple of people from BMW as well to join. So we will, they'll join the discussions as they come. So I would like to quickly, take this opportunity to welcome you all, and thank you so much for taking the time to join this roundtable discussions. I want to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Chandramouli, who will be the moderator of the discussions. He is the digital strategist and technology advisor to Shankar Nethralaya. He's also an advisor to GAS Technologies. Under his leadership, his focus, both these companies have actually taken digital transformation to a new level. He's also a mentor to various technology startups and on the advisory board of various companies. He has over 35 years of experience in the field of technology. So thank you, sir, for moderating this session, and over to you.
Oh, sure. We'll start right now, Vespita.
Yes, sir. Please, let's start. And as the team joins, we will, we'll add them, and I'll let you know when they join.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I think we may have a couple of people not joining us who would express their regrets, but anyway, we are good to go right now. Welcome, everyone. I think for quickly, what we want to do today is to discuss on the AIOps story, actually, and also give a bird's eye view of where we are from an industry. I think we have a lot of people from varying industries today. We have some people from telecom, automotive, manufacturing, FMCG at this point of time. I think what I may like to do is to primarily set a stage for a context for a discussion and take this forward. We are all living in the most transformational times for sure. Actually, I think the pandemic has really been good and bad. Bad for individuals in terms of health, but good in terms of advancing a lot of tech areas where we haven't seen. I think if most of the jokes in the CIO circle is the corona had been the largest, possibly the biggest CIO that you can probably think around. I think there's a lot of commonality between what we do and how corona changed our world. From a business perspective, what I really see is this has brought risk to the forefront of our discussions today. I think most of the times what we really see is business resilience as one of the new buzzwords going around. Customer expectations moving from safety and convenience. I think these are all things that the transformation has really brought in. And our engagement models have also shifted to much more physical and digital. Actually, there's a lot of the hybrid experiences which I've been seeing, whether it's in technology areas or it could be manufacturing or it could be anything. And we've all seen the future of work actually, in the sense that many of us are working from, even in physical industries, say like healthcare. I think we have really seen people working from home digitally, things like telemedicine and all those things, which had been completely a different world before, is now becoming mainstream. And most of us have been adopting to something what is called as a digital first in terms of as a strategy actually. So what we've seen is a lot of adaptivity to the change, and the technology is becoming increasingly the core of innovation. And having a resilient IT and an infrastructure is one of going to be the key for us to really survive and take it forward. Actually, the core of our discussion is going to be how technology is going to help each one of us in terms of the way forward and how we really see. Looking at the profile of the audience, we may like to start with the key fundamental players in this business, which is telecom, which has brought us to this whole lively discussion going forward today, and also with the future of work, what we're trying to do is around the telecom itself. So let's hear from Vinod. I think Vinod is there, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening. Good evening to you. You have been part of a major, one of the largest companies probably in the world in terms of telecom infrastructure. I think you've seen a whole lot of change before Corona and post-pandemic actually. I think if we can educate us really in terms of what went right, what didn't go well, and how do you really see as the change going forward. I think we have seen a lot of new things here, like work from home, even the last mile capability that we are talking around, all these things being serviced with your mobile towers and things like that. I think you have been a phenomenal, good things that has been done as part of the industry. I think you have been delivering a lot of results for the country itself. So, do you have the technology to really support and grow in terms of what we do, and how do you really see in terms of predicting the problems, and how do you want to do something different?
Right. So thank you so much, Molly. I think from my point of view, it has been an education. The last 2 years have been an education in what was initially in terms of an industry, a difficult industry, has become a significantly more attractive proposition, because the dependence on telecom has never been more evident. We've noticed this before pandemic, during situations like the floods and so on, and even now with Amphan and Yas. It's interesting that the perspective of several of even the authorities and so on is geared towards availability of telecom being suddenly a more important factor than perhaps it used to be earlier. Be that as it may, I think the fundamentals of, I will look at telecom in two ways. One is obviously the need to do more and the increase in demand in our industry, which is always a good thing. But the second is really that as a business, we ourselves are the borderline of physical and digital. I have over 20,000 people in the field that are doing things like maintenance of the towers or refilling diesel in the towers and so on. So, when you have something like a pandemic, that also challenges our own models in terms of what is it that we are doing and how is it that we are maintaining these. And there is also a very interesting phenomenon of this whole convergence, Molly, between the operational technology that we use and the IT stuff that we use. So, in the end of the day, as these things converge, our ability to do AI ops or related concepts, our ability to do self-healing, governing, remote repair, remote diagnosis, these things are becoming cardinally important to us, because one is, of course, you have a much smaller window to fix things. Two is, it is physically difficult to get people out to sites. We always knew that. And you're right in the sense that this pandemic has removed some of those, I don't want to work this way because I don't have to kind of a syndrome that kind of existed. So there is an acceleration to the remote. But I think, the biggest thing, and this is something that my CEO says a lot of the time, we had two challenges before. One was finding out what is the problem. And then two was taking what we have found and fixing the problem. So if you like, it is from the ground to the analytics and from the analytics to the action. And we call it internally in Indus, we call it closed looping.
Okay.
Because, you take an analytics report which says these 50 sites, there's a problem. Now somebody prints that off or somebody takes it out of the analytics system and then invariably ends up going to some other system and punching work orders against those. Say now, I will actually assign this to this partner and this partner will go out and do something at the site. And this, to my mind, is the perfect example of, situations that are tailor-made for a ops or a intelligent closed looping. And, this is really the holy grail in our industry. Because the more of these administrative jobs we can take out, the more we can put our energies into the front end of our business and the quicker we can close these issues. So I think, those are the key trends. And I don't believe that should be different between us. In a model, it's curious. We are much more similar to a utility. We're more like an electricity company or, in that sense, we are a facilities company for the telecom world. And I believe that these are the models when you talk about resilience.
More a utility company than become a telecom provider.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's incidental that our business happens to be telecom. And obviously, this means our technology is a lot more amenable to IT services models. But save that, I think, when you talk about resilience, this is really the model, which is when you get the companies like ourselves, when you get the companies like the utilities, when you get the companies like the large, distribution chains into a AI ops kind of framework, then you achieve true resilience. Because otherwise, you will end up chasing a lot of low value added activity as opposed to kind of fixing things in time and by themselves. So that's, I think, the viewpoint from telecom and certainly from people that are, that spread out infrastructure providers or support providers like ourselves. I think these are our key challenges.
Okay, let's hear from Gaz. Like Balaji, I think you have been dealing with a lot of customers. Do you think for somebody like telecom, particularly like hearing what you heard from Krishnan, this becomes a AOps is a magic wand, or how do you look at it?
Yeah,
Balaji,
I think he brought up some very, very interesting points and practical points. And Vinod, I really appreciate the practicality of what you brought out, rather than trying to boil the ocean and figuring out everything can be done with the click of a button. We were actually talking to a couple of actual telecom providers, right? One large one in South India and one pan-India guys. And their biggest challenge was two parts, almost similar to your thought process. And we are actually deploying it in one of them right now as we speak, is that they have zillions of customers and they were finding it extremely difficult, one, to be proactive to find the problem, saying that, oh, okay, this particular zone or this particular area could potentially have an outage or could potentially lead to some problems. And second one, having found that out, really going to the root of the problem, rather than throwing back and forth and making the customer wait. Create, as you rightly said, create a bunch of work order and then get that sorted out. So I think proactively monitoring the solution until the last mile, and then not only just proactively monitoring, but with all this data and noise keep coming in, right? You never know where the real problem is. Getting to the root of the problem and saying these four could potentially be areas where the problem is, and narrow it down so that even if the problem occurs, first of all, avoid the problem. But if the problem occurs, be able to get to the root of the problem very quickly. And third point, which I'm sure you're also hearing from your telecom customers, is the volume, right? I mean, it's no longer like a hospital. I don't have like a 80 patient, 100 patient coming per day. Here I am having like 80 million, 90 million people accessing at the same time. And if I use monitoring, I'll get like 10 times that volume of data coming in. And then how do I scramble through the noise in that and find out where the problem is, which part of the sector is the problem, and then avoid the problem. And if the problem has happened, can I remediate it automatically? If I find the problem, I can't remediate it, and at least tell what exactly the problem is so that the service engineer or somebody who's responsible can go and fix it immediately, and the end user experience or the customer experience is higher. These are some real problems we have been juggling with in the telecom industry and in the consumer industry particularly. And that's where some of our solutions are being able to help and address. Because for volume, the quantum of geographical spread and distribution, and more importantly, getting to the root of the problem, keeping not just the outages in mind, but the customer experience in mind, or the end user in mind, which is ultimately what decides how the telecom industries are going to foster. So those are things which are there, but you brought up some very practical points. And I think we are working with IIT Madras, and thanks to the professor, trying to get him on board. He's actually part of the data center, artificial intelligence and machine learning innovation hub. We actually have figured out how to solve that problem, and we are rolling it out to a couple of places. So it will be interesting to probe further later on, maybe.
In fact, if I can just quickly intervene, Molly, I think one of the lovely things that you said, Balaji, which resonates with me, is the idea of intelligently filtering this noise.
Correct.
Because, to close a recognized problem to action is a known problem.
Correct.
To recognize problem, unfortunately, is not a known problem. I mean, especially when
True.
you have a number of things. And today we, for instance, do a lot of correlation between our alarms. So, finding out that site is, you say, okay, if the temperature is this and if the conditions are this, then the probability that the site is on fire is pretty high. But, that to get to that conclusion is still not as intuitive as it should be. And I think appreciate the efforts you guys are making. I'd certainly be keen to understand that.
Nice. To understand. Thank you, Vinod, for your inputs, valuable inputs. Yes, Mr. Molly.
Thank you. I think from digital mobility, let us go to physical mobility, actually. I think Manjunath is here from TVS, actually. I think he has been on an industry which has gone for a complete toss even before the COVID, and to now into post-COVID into a completely different animal altogether. You have case studies around EV adoption, which are picking up in some way or the other. Then there is an industry transformation going into hybrid and also into such various modes of transmissions and things like that. I think we have an extreme amount of buyers who are making a lot more informed decisions. And we are a distributor of choice with most of the automobile manufacturers in India. The entire supply chain going into a lot of change. I think we are on the cusp of multiple changes. It's just not one change, actually. Unlike many other industries, I think we are not into one change. So how do you deal with such amount of extreme change? Are you really geared to deal with this in one go, or do you have the tools? Do you have the kind of insights that you may require for you to really deal with the amount of change that is happening in your industry?
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for the invite and the chance given. The thing is, yes, as you rightly said, we are going through a lot of churn in the organization, both in the organization as well as in the industry as well. So, but as you know, already know, TVS being a traditional organization, we were used to the brick and mortar kind of stuff, the manual physical activity, and our job is related to servicing the vehicle. It is purely related to the physical activities at the ground level. Now with this pandemic, the push has been robust, drastic push has been towards the digital footprint, where the physical presence of the people are getting reduced. But still we have to meet the customer, we have to keep the engagement of the customer. So to keep the customer experience going, in the last 1.5 years, we have been fully into the cloud first model. That has been a blessing in disguise. With this pandemic, it has been very useful. It has been very helpful to keep closer to our customers. And there are massive programs being rolled out in the organization to have the digital footprint, to increase the digital footprint, where typically initially we had to do a lot of manual activities, physical presence activities. Now we are conveying those into the form of digital footprints, in the form of digital applications to the customers. That is one way. The second major challenge is we have, with being a traditional organization, we had all the in-house hosting of the data center infrastructures and all. We have come out of it. Now we have moved into the cloud around 2 years back. So that was a major shift that has been done, both from the cultural perspective as well as from the industry trend perspective. We were one of the early adapters of adopting cloud in the manufacturing segment, in the distribution segment. That was a key lever for us to move forward. Now that we have completed the IaaS model of the infrastructure hosting in the cloud, now we are exploring the other services of the cloud like SaaS, PaaS kind of services, which has enabled us being as a first leader in adoption of cloud. That is another way. Now, another thing that is coming is, as Mr. Mowli said, rightly said, on the electric vehicles and the automations that is coming in and all, that is adding us further fuel to the fire and is creating more chaos. Like we are trying to build out the IoTs, the data analytics. Now the data is lying in so many bits and pieces across the world in different platforms, different methods. How can we bring the data into a single view and single make meaningful decisions? So these are all the learnings. Yes, all are not done at the right pace, at the right speed. Yes, we are going through the learning curve. Somewhere we take a hit, somewhere we take some misses, and we are trying to overcome that by adapting the tools, whatever we have, taking the support of the service providers wherever possible, and we are crossing through that milestone.
Great, great. I think for Chandra, for example, now do you have enough insights that your tool really can give it to an industry like automotive, which can going in for such a vast amount of change? Because you heard that they are in a lot of brick and mortar places, and suddenly something going digital and supply chain getting virtual. Can GAS really highlight some of the changes that insights that you can really bring into the table to help customers here like TVS to understand their business problems better?
Sure, Chandramouli. First of all, good evening to all.
Excuse me, Mr. Chandra, sorry to interrupt you for just a minute. Mr. Prakash from BMW has joined.
Oh, sure. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome, Mr.
Hello,
Prakash.
everybody.
So sorry to interrupt you again.
Welcome,
no
Mr.
problem.
Prakash. Welcome to the conversation. Thank you.
I think you're just right around the time. I think we are just going through the automotive phase.
Hi, Prakash. Good
Okay,
evening.
go ahead, Chandra. Yeah, please.
Yes. Chandramouli and Manjunath. First, we talked about a lot of challenges and the technology, particularly the EV itself is a new technology. It's a challenge as well as the interesting innovation. AIOps actually thrives on these new technologies. The AIOps actually deals with the data and more and less on technologies. That doesn't mean that it will not work with the new technologies. Many times we are asked whether the AIOps could work with the new niche technologies like SD-WAN or hyperscaler environment, or some even go, Manju, you talked about adopting more new technologies in the cloud like the containers and microservices. So one of the characteristics of AIOps platform is the ability to integrate with various tools and technologies and thereby consume the data for analysis and prediction. That is actually the true requirement of an AIOps. And that once you have that, then actually we don't need to worry about what technology is that. The readiness to work with the new technology should be there in AIOps tool. And the zero incident framework, which we have as an AIOps tool, have been able to integrate with various tools. And in fact, many places we have been asked whether we could integrate with medical devices, kiosks, and POS machines. So that way, I think this is ready to take the challenges and the new technologies that the new pandemic provides, Mr. Chandramouli. Another thing I want to highlight here is, Vinod also talked about that the reliance on technology has actually become more now. Even those organizations which have been 50-50 on the technology dependency and reliance is now entirely depending on the technology. So service reliability has become very key in today's world. And that's actually one of the key deliverable of AIOps. One of the measures of service reliability is actually the user experience. And you also talked about, Vinod, and everyone would agree that user experience is actually the key thing in any applications, tools, technologies, and it is true for AIOps also. We firmly believe every problem or incident that happens in an IT environment has a connection to the user experience. Vinod actually clearly explained the problem to analytics to action. And that's how these AIOps work. And we associate every problem with user experience. And we start the resolution of the problem also from the user's point of view. And the user should get consistent response from applications irrespective of the day and time, whether it is peak hours or non-peak hours. Again, a true AIOps tool like GAP Zero Incident Framework continuously monitor the user experience. Again, we monitor the user experience as a primary. Thereby, we also monitor the systems and other things, predict the user experience based on the historic data, and suggest remediations before an unpleasant event happens. That's Chandramouli.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, let's address the same issue with Prakash. I think, Prakash, I think we are talking about mobility, your industry itself. And I think it has gone for a vast change even before the pandemic to what it is right now. I think particularly as a premier brand, I think now you really focus on a lot of user experience, stated, unstated, buying behaviors completely changing, your supply chain particularly because you are a different class of vehicles that you really roll it out. Actually, your supply chain is largely global. So this is a perfect storm in terms of a lot of changes that happened to your organization. So how did you respond to those changes from a technology standpoint? And do you have the tools to really deal with the quantum of change that happened in automotive?
Of course, the pandemic, what actually has made a bigger impact in our side is on a customer side.
Right.
So it's the customer side which is actually was impacted because all on a sudden customer doesn't have an access to our dealership. So they and the dealers are the place from where we sell the car, we service the car, and that's the key point. So for that we needed solutions, and solutions which are robust enough, which has an kind of things which can support the customers at any point of time. His entire customer journey, we usually look at around 300 to 400 customer touch points in the whole when we define our customer journey. So all those touch points has to be actually enabled with the system, the digital way, where the customer is reaching. If he's trying to do something, he should be able to do it in a seamless manner, and that should be his experience. Also should be omni-channel experience. So what we needed to react to this situation. Actually, the first thing what we did was we created a solution, an online sales solution. This online sales solution had a complete setup of starting the journey when customer coming, configuring the car, he's looking at what are the prices, what are the modules I can have it. We enabled with an AI enabled bots also. So if a customer wants to have some idea about the product, then there is a product genius sitting behind, which is a machine, a robot. It can tell you what kind of features are available in the product, what you will get it, and at what price. So a customer, what he is doing when he is reaching to the dealership and talking to a sales agent, he should be able to do it online. So these technological capabilities we needed to build in. If he wants to have a different financial structures around it, that if he wants to buy a car, what are the different model of financing available, even what are the inventories which are available, how much time it will take to get a particular car if I want to. That was on the sales side. If similarly on the service side, if you are going for a service booking, the customer cannot go to the dealership anymore. So there should be an feature available to him where he can book his online appointments, he can schedule it, he can whatever the technicians are doing it. So we enabled the solutions, typically video enabled solutions, where whatever is getting repaired in your car, whatever changes are happening, you can see it in we call it actually see it now in our internal world. So that's the kind of an applications where the technicians from there itself with the app, he shows it to the customer that yes, this is where the problem is, fault is, this is what I'm going to repair, it will cost you this much, are you okay, can we go ahead with it? And you don't have to travel and you don't have to go to the dealership. So this whole pandemic actually taught us to have a solution which is easily available, which is very seamless, which is connected to all our solutions, different solutions, and which has a lot of data points generated, a lot of intelligence built into it, and can provide a solution to it. So this one big change I saw in last 1 year, and this is in fact picking up a lot also, that we are going completely online, we are going completely in a contactless way of working.
Yeah, that's interesting actually. Chandra, can you really understand that infrastructure in this case becomes a lot more critical than in many other cases actually? So do you think you have enough insights that you can give to somebody like BMW to talk about some of these, how can they can discover things much early, provide a seamless customer experience, things like that?
Yes, Chandra, I'll do that. But when Prakash spoke about his problem, a lot of things went in my mind. And actually, there also there are a lot of scope and potential for AIOps, because when you have online sales, Prakash, you actually don't know what are the kind of questions that the customer would ask. And if a bot has to respond to that, then you need to have an NLP built into that. So NLP is one of the key AIOps technologies there. And probably before initiating the discussion, you might want to know the profile of the customer, because you also understand what are the questions that you would ask. This is a kind of a self-learning, understanding the environment and self-learning, and then using the NLP to correct the answers to respond to that. So I could see that self-learning and self-correcting in the action for that online sales, Prakash. It's an interesting. Chandramouli and others, the AIOps platform is also working based on the self-learning and self-correcting. When it is deployed in an environment, it first understands that environment, how that environment behaves. And you talked about insights, Chandramouli. So this is how it actually provides. And first, it actually learns. And after learning, then it can identify the hotspots in the environment well in advance, and let the owners actually work on it. Owners means that application owner or infrastructure owner. The difference between a proactive tool like AIOps and a reactive tool like automation, I'm actually calling that automation, the traditional automation is the reactive,
Sure.
is that it actually provides insights about an event before it occurs. And that is actually very, very important. That is what we call that the self-learning and be ready to work on it. The events that are happening in a device or a set of devices are related to each other in some way. Again, this is how it actually works. Some are related based on the relationship, how they are connected, and some are based on the nature of the problems. Many times, I think all here would understand that a problem happens in one server is actually not caused by a problem in that server. It is caused by somebody else, somewhere else. That is where we need to do the correlation. I think Vinod also talked about the correlation of certain things based on what we know. But the IT environment being very dynamic environment, that the static correlation actually will not help. The correlations keep changing in a dynamic environment. I'll just tell you, recently in one of the customer engagement where the Zero Incident Framework is installed, we came across a unique insight that none of the traditional monitoring tools could provide, that we could link a ticket from a user actually with the error log message that we have collected from the server. And there is another one, the threshold breaches that have happened in the storage. We actually link these things. Whenever that user gets an error, the particular error, we could see that error log happens and the storage in the average read and write actually breaches the threshold. Then we could actually link these three, and we were able to provide the resolution so that the user did not get the ticket there.
Okay.
So that's how we actually.
Chandra, actually, that's pretty exhaustive. Actually, let's quickly move because I think we may be in a jam for time. Actually, let's move to Atanu. Actually, Atanu, I think we have some very interesting dimensions similar to automotive in manufacturing as well. I think you have the same global supply chain problems. I think we have the demand for industries because of the global supply chain being impacted. I think a lot of localization had been happening. I think now we need to shift to green energy ideas, cost optimization, all in quick time. Actually, we have seen many industries completely changing gears. And on top of it, we have a lot of industries moving into a lot more flexible lines. Suddenly, there is a lot of talk around oxygen cylinders coming from manufacturing industries, or UV lamps being made, or things like even all the protective gear that many of the healthcare had been demanding suddenly, which are in complete short supply, being manufactured by many of the manufacturing industries. So completely out-of-box ideas, which were probably leading into a lot more dynamism to what it was originally designed for, came around. On top of it, you have a digital ecosystem getting with integrated supply chains and Atmanirbhar, I think the Made in India story evolving. I think with all this kind of, again, change, particularly for somebody like you, what was your response when you have worlds which was completely semi-automated and which are completely automated with IoT and so many other technologies? Were you ready for such change? No. What went into your mind during those pandemic times?
Right, great. Chandramouli, thanks for this opportunity. I am clearly audible, right?
Yes, very much, Atanu. Go ahead.
Yeah. So a few things I wanted to share that, from the oxygen concentrators perspective, I think our copper Dahej plant kind of supplied to the tune of 45 metric tons per day to the government of Gujarat for the last 2.5 months since this wave 2 kind of got to a critical stage, right? So we kind of quickly modified our internal oxygen requirement to make it into a portable oxygen concentrators and supply it to the government for distributing it to the people who required it during this critical phase. We also imported quite a number of oxygen concentrators through our US arm, Novelis, right? So people kind of tried to be innovative to make them, rather let them enter the Indian ports. Basically, we distributed the entry to 4 different ports, the east, west, south. We kind of distributed it, and it worked very well for the last 2.5 months. And honestly speaking, we were able to support many of our own colleagues as well as the industry, right? So that's while that is one part of it. Precisely from the, I would say, the improvisation from the production or from the product's perspective, the only point that I would like to say here is we don't have any major ways to improvise our product portfolio. The reason being that we are kind of I would say a fixed range of products company at this moment, unless we really change our production lines. Okay. So from that perspective, the point was we had to keep our production intact, which was a combination of safety guidelines, shifting, putting people into shift, making the production lines as autonomous as possible in that frame of time. We had to change our customer portfolio. So we did a different way to overcome the situation, right? In the beginning of last year, pandemic, like around March, April, May, June, that was one of the worst quarters, I think, worldwide. The first wave, the first 3 months, right? And then we kind of found out that the demand in Indian context had really dried out by end of May, June last year of the kind of products that we were producing. And we quickly kind of shifted our supply base to the customers who were international customers, mainly to Europe and South African entities. And that made the major difference for us. We could kind of take care of the non-performance of the first quarter of the last financial year, and we ended the year 2021 pretty strongly, I would say. The board meeting was just few weeks back, so I can talk about it officially, right? So I would say in terms of IoT and automation, Chandramouli, to your point, the initiatives were already on to put in the IoTs, put in the CBMs, the condition-based monitoring systems, to kind of bring in the focus of improvement in the quality and productivity through the IoT sensors. But during this time, it got a tremendous push, and we tried to capture the data and get to the insights and the analytics of that data, right? That got a tremendous push. And we really could derive some good value out of it. That was pretty much kind of available during I mean, at the right time we could bifurcate or kind of channelize our efforts into automating our production improvement, quality improvement targets and KPIs.
Okay.
Right. I would probably add one more point, that in the IT automation perspective, yeah, I mean, it was nothing barely more than a requirement of access to the network from anywhere and anytime, because the users, not only were working from home, but they were really working from their village at some point in time, right? They went back, many people went back to their native places, their villages, right? Beginning of last year's situation. So, but we kind of, though I don't think anyone in the world can claim that they were ready and kind of prepared for this kind of pandemic, but we kind of managed that pretty well.
Okay, cool. See, Balaji, I think you have a tremendous story in terms of AIOps for a lot of this manufacturing and things like that. Does this really help in their operational efficiency? Because we just heard the concerns around loss of productivity, whatever it is, and then suddenly they're making it up in the last quarter. I think, can these things really be helpful when we are trying to do something as critical an infrastructure in manufacturing?
Absolutely. So I think I'll take two parts of the response. One is, as Mr. Prakash was alluding to, the changing business process, which he was having online sale. It was actually reflecting me that we are working with Ashley Furniture, Mr. Prakash, in the US, who was again a retail store. You buy those large, luxurious furniture, going to a store and buying it. They were not online. And all of a sudden, this pandemic pushed them. Because of the pandemic, because people are working from home, they wanted a lot of furniture, but they couldn't go and buy it. So they actually had to translate everything to an online e-commerce site. So they built a site and they were working on a larger supply chain business process problem, fetching raw materials from Vietnam, assembling them in some other part, and then polishing it off and getting it ready in the US. And again, the customers wanting to let them know how the furniture should be because it's a luxurious furniture. Two things happened in that AI, using AIOps there, right? One is our ability to, like what Chandra said, our ability to do some self-learning of the data and provide some insights to them, saying that you're providing the commitment to your customer that you'll deliver like this, but your actual business process is not going to be able to deliver. So you have to do something to change it. So trying to read through the various business processes and providing the reliability and availability of the process. And the second one is figuring out, like what Chandra said, being able to relate the internal problems you're facing to what a customer need is, and then trying to bridge the gap. How can, again, something like an AI play a role there? And that's what something we are now putting an innovation team together with them to make it happen. Coming to Atanu, tremendous here. I mean, if you really reshape your business model and your revenue model, and what you just said about what you did on the oxygen concentrators and oxygen supplies to your own people, others, hats off. Proud to be an Indian, proud to have known Atanu and his company, that they have done something of this phenomenal nature. Really appreciate it. But Atanu, if I have to ask you one pertinent question as a CXO, what is it that keeps you awake at night these days from an IT perspective?
Right. So, Balaji, I mean, thanks for this, for the acknowledgement. Yeah, I mean, as a team, we are proud what we could deliver to the society for the last few months, definitely. So, yeah, I mean, I would say the connectivity, honestly, Balaji. We are into, though not 100%, but some of our processes are continuous process, right? Let's say the sulfuric acid generation as a byproduct of copper plant in the hedge, right? So that's a continuous process. We don't have a storage facility. So during the night, even if for 10 minutes, the connectivity is broken and we are not able to create e-invoices through the GST portal, I get an SOS probably at 1 o'clock in the night, right? So a few of these things in the today's connected world, while our lives are becoming much better in one way, on the other way, we are so much dependent on the high availability of such infrastructure, on the reliability and on the almost 100% uptime is the expectation right now, right? And that is where I think I would fear most, that at times, I don't have anything to do. I don't know rather what to do, but I have to be at the mercy of, okay, I know, I mean, we have our telecom friend here on this call, but still at times when a network goes down, everything is working from my application perspective, but that becomes the biggest challenge at times, right? And with more and more applications, machineries becoming online and connected and integrated, I think that will be the biggest challenge in my mind, that will keep many CIOs awake in the night, is the network connectivity, the high availability and reliability.
Understand. No, and you nailed it. And you nailed it, Tanu. That's the point which AI is trying to address. I mean, I wish the IIT professor was on this call. He would have elaborated you as to how the whole reinforcement learning algorithms which we are doing is actually enabling and driving what we call as service reliability, service assurance, and more importantly, observability. One of the big challenges some of the NASDAQ listed big giant banks are able to now want to look at is something called as observability. They are able to say that in these 10 hops, the data goes or the process flows, but this particular hop is actually becoming a bottleneck, or this particular hop is what is potentially creating a bottleneck or a problem. Identifying that much ahead of time and telling them very clearly that the remaining 9 hops are fine as in from a reliability perspective. It's not just saying it's up and running, but it is responding the way it is supposed to respond. And then being able to in an aggregate manner, being able to drive the outcome of the business process is what exactly this AIOps platform is right now doing. And that's what we are deploying in one of our consumer goods companies, customers in the US. So you nailed the point, Tanu. That's a challenge. And that's exactly what we are working on. And that's what exactly we are piloting in one of our consumer goods company. Their challenge is also to say, how do I reach the last mile of connectivity to be able to actually complete my business process? And the CIO kept telling that, can I know the problem, Balaji, before my business tells me?
Yep.
And that's worse, right? I actually lose my job. Right. So we actually are now giving him in such a way that he did not even know that certain business process existed. After we rolled out our platform, he came to know, oh my God, there were 4 other hops which it was going, which I never even knew, right? It was not known because it was legacy, but our platform was able to detect and tell him that such a thing is happening. You are not even monitoring that or not even looking at it. Actually speaking, some of the major problems actually happen in that processes he never even knew. So the platform has the ability to discover and identify such areas where probably human intelligence has not gone through. And those are things which we are applying in manufacturing and supply chain and in the retail space at this point in time. But interesting.
Balaji. Yep, interesting.
Maybe I think we know probably you have a lot of use cases to discuss on this last mile issues and how technology is helping your customers. I think Atanu had been spot on in terms of the last mile issues, particularly working remotely home from villages, so on and so forth. So you have been the most critical infrastructure provider for the country. How do you respond to that?
No, in fact, let me say that, one of the greatest things about technology, and I think you'll all agree, is that there are not infinite problems. The problem set is actually not big.
That's true.
If you're talking about a network issue or something, there are only so many components, there are only so many links in that chain that can fail.
Correct.
So your failure modes are not your challenge. Your challenge is to isolate the node that is failing. And so in a sense, it is simple use cases at scale.
Correct.
Which is where people like Atanu and I deeply sympathize. As a CIO myself, I am equally dependent on our product and our services just as much as pretty much anybody on this call, if not probably more, because I also have a role in keeping the service up itself. So at my towers, for instance, I am the network. So I have no recourse to anybody if I'm talking about a network at a tower.
Right.
So I think the view I would have and the contribution I would have in this discussion is that the challenge for us is not inventing. The challenge is not to get our AI engines so intelligent that they will create value where there is none, but to get them so smart that they filter the noise, as Balaji was talking, and come down to which one of these 5 cases is it. So, let me take an analogy that will probably be easier to understand in this IT focus. This thing is, if you have a problem that a PC is not able to connect to a network, you broadly branch it into hardware and software, and then you branch it into network card versus something else in the hardware, or, drivers versus something else in the software. If you look at the tree, it is not an extensive tree. However, 99% of those problems still involve such complex interplay and lot of trial and error and back and forth thing that happens between your help desk engineer and yourself, leading to significant frustration from a user experience point of view, because that guy believes that what you're doing is hit and miss. He's not seeing the logic behind it, or he's not seeing the flow behind it. I think, and one thing that certainly any service industry or any customer facing industry can do better is be more transparent. So to Atanu's problem, the problem is not that it is taking 4 hours for my network to come back. The problem is I don't know.
Oh, correct.
And the problem is I don't know enough to tell somebody that, okay, it will be up in 4 hours.
Correct.
Otherwise, these are the areas I think where a lot of the work goes. Because the challenge as a CIO or the challenge as somebody who is managing this is not the activity. It is this peripheral clarity, for want of a better word. And okay, if nothing else, if I'm able to issue an update to, if I'm in Atanu's shoes and I'm able to issue an update to my management that, okay, the problem is not here. That is itself a level of clarity that they do not have today. I was, sorry, I tuned out a little when somebody was talking about the CIO who was worried about his job. In my view, anybody in a service industry understands this, that avoidance of error is impossible. If you try to optimize for 0 error, you will fail. There's no question whatsoever. The question is what happens when it happens and what level of clarity and transparency do you have. I mean, in 28 years in IT, I've learned that when you have a problem and you go back to the board or the management committee, they don't want to hear anything other than when will you be back up, what is going on, who's working on it, are you comfortable that you will be back at this point in time. Beyond that, neither there is an interest to know, nor there is the ability to understand what you're talking about. So I fully agree with that. No, I think that is really where a lot of the focus goes. Have I done my FMEA? Is my AI engine tuned to that FMEA? That's all you really need.
Yeah, Chandra, the good point is what Vinod has been talking about, a lot of practical, bringing in a lot of transparency to the whole thing. So do you think an AIOps can bring in that transparency, provide them the kind of right metrics and or rather even predict it, things like that? Do you think it makes sense?
Yes. Yes, Chandramouli, very much. And thanks, Vinod, for that easy question. I was about to tell this. See, there is one feature called estimated time to complete. And you touched it very, very clearly, Vinod. When the problem happens, the first thing that the user wants to know is when will it get resolved. So this AIOps product, based on the historic data, how this problem have been resolved by which engineer at what time, what are the similar related problems and related seasons, it actually estimates the time how much it would complete, and we can actually communicate that with the user. This is what I touched upon initially as part of the user experience. The user experience actually starts here. And then it actually starts looking into that. There also we have something called MTTI, Vinod, the mean time to identify an issue. And you also said that the moment you know where the problem is, I think how the problem is resolved. Most of the time, we actually spend a lot of time in identifying where the problem is. This mean time to identify or mean time to detect, some call it that way, is actually getting enabled by these AIOps due to those correlations that are happening in the AIOps platform based on relationship and based on the patterns and based on the problem relationship. There are various things that are there. So let me bring in one, Chandramouli. I'll quickly tell this incident. I think it's very relevant to this manufacturing domain. This happened in one of the production house where we have implemented this AIOps tool. And our platform was monitoring the Dematic system. I think some of you may know this. Dematic system is the logistical system that connects e-commerce orders and the stocks in stores. I'd put it in a very, very high overview. Any failure in this system actually will result into the delayed fulfillment of orders. And Atonic also talked about that. When someone is not able to access the site because of connectivity, then invoice cannot be generated. But here, our system was actually able to detect the issues in this Dematic system in advance and generated an alert. And many times it actually becomes an issue. It could be resolved and the outage was averted. I'm saying this to emphasize that point that the target system could be anything and any technology, and AIOps tool can read the data, which is what is important, and learn the behavior of the machines and provide insights whenever it sees some anomalies. That's how actually it is able to detect problem in advance. When the problem happens, it's able to tell very clearly where the problem is and how much time it would take. And these anomalies that happen, this could be an inefficiency in performance or utilization or environment or integration, could be any kind, Chandramouli, but it will find that out.
Okay, good. That's pretty elaborate. Yeah, let's move on to Farah Khan, actually. I think largely, when you look into the FMCG or the retail, I think, anybody who wants to produce, I think end of the day, they need to sell. I think FMCG had been one industry which had been very successful. It had grown despite the pandemic. There have been a lot of downsides, but I think end of the day, there's a lot of new products which came in. It could be on personal care, health, hygiene. I think a lot of new solutions came around, some of them quite disruptive to what it was originally. I think there's a lot of innovation that really happened. A lot of localization happened in between. I think we've seen the rural India wrapping up a lot more products than what it was originally before. So new demand coming in from semi-urban, rural. I think there is tremendous amount of growth happened because of changing lifestyles and also due to the pandemic. Particularly for somebody in the FMCG, I think with such amount of change, diversity that we are talking about. Now you talk to any FMCG distributor, I think they deal with the hundreds and thousands of outlets and touch points and things like that. Now, how do you deal with a complex market structure? Do you have data to really manage such complexities for smarter decision making? Do you have tools which really help and measure the productivity outcome, whatever that you're talking about measuring?
Yeah, Chandra, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. The liquor industry, so to call in India, I think it is in transition for the last 10, 12 years. The reason being, the lot of global player has now entered into this field, like Diageo, Pernod. And of course, being an Indian player, you need to match the quality that the global players basically bring into their brands. Similarly, if you look at the promoter-driven companies, the new generation is also taking the charge, and they are driving the business in a different way and a different fashion. Now, being it's a new generation, they are data hungry. They are looking for a lot of data, and they're also looking for a digitalization. And the 21st century, where is a century where if you go to buy liquor, it's not that you are buying a liquor without any barcode and all, because the state government, because the 50% revenue is coming from the liquor. Almost most of this, it is general understanding. Where this percentage of tax is 200%, the revenue of a state is more than 50%, like West Bengal and all. So they are more into monitoring kind of things, that how you guys are producing your products, how you guys are into warehousing and the retailer and logistics as well. So they themselves are coming to the manufacturer and asking them what kind of solutions that you guys are looking for, which is helping in turn state government to know where about the products which are there at the ground, and specifically they are more concerned about the excise duty which we are paying, because it is highly taxed material. And this liquor industry is basically something where every state is being treated as a country. So for example, in Delhi, if I'm supplying material from UP, that means I have to have import fees and export fees that I need to pay for both the states. Now, looking at the dynamics that industry is going through, and if you also see for the last 5-7 years, most of the Indian liquor players are entering into a premium and higher premium products like Rampur Select. You have also heard about Amrut single malt whiskey. Jaisalmer is a gin, because gin is a new trend after vodka. Now it's fading away. It was a 2% market. Now gin is getting more into a percentage with respect to the consumption. Now, when you talk about availability of product, which is on a premium side, you are looking for the investment at a plant level. Earlier, manufacturing was like connecting people. Now it is connecting machines as well. And of course, they need to know the people at the ground, what these guys are doing. India, it's about 125 lakhs outlets that we have all across India. If my guy is going to the, let's say, an outlet, what kind of information he's getting from the outlet? Is my product visibility is as good as I want to be? What kind of a scheme my promoter is running? So the guy who's running a business, he's more hungry about such kind of information, because he want to see his product as compared to what the competitors are doing. So analytics, digitalizations, of course, during the pandemic, I think we all know that liquor is known that, the liquor industry is driving the economy of India. But similarly, producing a product during this pandemic situation, running the whole network of Asia's largest distillery and supplying to the destinations where our accessibility was big issue. And even every state has its own set of application and monitoring, which is supposed to be catered by the plant. So specification and monitoring is something which is so high that you need to have your plant is up and running 24/7. Your network is up, your applications are up, people are working in 3 shifts because they have to maintain 50% of people, those are working at the factory, means COVID norms and all. So it has changed from 2000, if you look at the 2000 and 2021, which is now 21st century. So you can see the real world has changed. The management is looking for what kind of KPIs that we're driving. Of course, the cost of optimization is predominantly is one of the key area which liquor industries basically work. Reason being, the MRP is defined by the state government, not by the manufacturer and the brand owner. So the margin, which we call is, the profit margin is very less in some of the product. So what you have to do, you have to look at the cost optimizations. You need to see the automations that you can run all across. You need to see the different technologies which basically help to optimize the cost. So this has, of course, changed. And of course, when the new thing has come, which is for all of us, which is a pandemic, the new RTM which is reached to customer has changed. Now, earlier it was like shops, now it is online also. So it's like it is not route to market or reach to market. It's basically changing your entire IT landscape as well. You have to build your landscape in such a way that it is up and running, and it has to be as flexible that if any solutions comes into it, it has to fit into it.
A lot of unique, innovative ideas that you will have really to do to maintain your business, because we know that it's a money-making business, but challenges do exist. But Balaji, I think this is a familiar territory of operational excellence, cost optimization, so on and so forth. I think we heard you before, but we think in a very different, highly monitored industry like the bottling. How does this work actually? Does this make sense?
It does. I mean, it does. I think thanks to Farhan for elaborating it. So very well put, Mr. Farhan. Appreciate you going down to the granular most level in elaborating what the challenge and how you're facing it. If I can, the same question which I asked Atanu, right? I mean, instead of me just giving a very generic response, however, I still like to align with what Mr. Vinod said. Right, at the end of the day, it boils down to 3 or 4 very basic things only, in a way, right? You then translate into something very specific in that industry. But what exactly Vinod appreciated right at the very beginning, and his viewpoint actually holds good for every industry. It varies the intensity of the problem, but it still remains that way. So if I had to request you on the same lines of what I was asking Atanu, what keeps you awake at night as a head of infra or head of IT? What is the real pain point at this point in time to support your business model?
Balaji?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. See, it's honestly speaking, business continuity is something that we need to maintain at the top of it. And of course, the role is, running 24/7, and that to be 1953 means a plant that we operated in 1953. And there are certain machines. It's very tough to put on a SCADA system and connecting to people and getting that. It was really first of all, it was very hard when we started with during the pandemic. The reason being, there are certain machines which was not on the top of my network, and we have to send the people. And without this, the machine is not going to produce the brand that we are looking for. Now the new machines has come, which is basically there is state-of-art systems, like they are producing 500 bottles per minute. Speed so high, but of course they support and come into the network. But there are some lines which are there, and maintaining those lines and getting them into a network, it was really a nightmare. And that we have about 35 factories all across India. We cannot send physically an engineer, at each and every location. And it's a mix of the plant manufacturing is basically a mix of machines, which is automatic, semi-automatic. So largely it was on a manufacturing side, connecting those machines which is not there on the network, and monitoring those on machines on a regular basis. It was really a nightmare. Logistic was another issue. The reason being, it has been tracked by the state government. So keeping those systems alive, and it was a big issue. Of course, we are working on it. We are working on a plant also, how to maintain those machines that we can see online, and we can support them while remotely working on it. So logistic is another nightmare that we have faced. It was a big issue. Working on those applications, which basically help to monitor the logistics, which are moving from one state to another states. Because in our industry, there is a theft also, which is predominantly happens specifically for the alcohol. and the penalty is 1,000 times or 5,000 times. So it's very high. Means one truck, if there is any theft of 1 liter of alcohol, it cost me around 5 crore rupees. So digitally monitoring, and of course, looking at where those trucks are, the movement of the trucks, those applications really, is one of the nightmares. So other than running a business during the pandemic itself is a big challenge, and you don't know when the situation come or where the where the issues start. So these are the few things I think that we have faced.
Very well said. I think again, I think Vinod rightly summed it up very early. Again, it is going back to basics, right? In terms of availability, in terms of removing the noise and getting to the real problem, and giving that reliability of information so that decisions can be faster. How transparent can we provide, or how insightful can we provide, so that people are to take decisions both internally and to the external market, either to the compliance authority or to the end customers, that they are able to communicate and engage them. And how do you actually capture user experience and figure out how some of these are there? And you'll be very surprised. That's why I feel that I'm missing the professor from IIT who could not make it to this call. He would have loved this conversation, because these are real problems we are actually running after, right? When people talk big things about AI and ML, that it can change the world, I'm not saying it can't, but what I'm also saying is that it can only change the world until and unless the basics are not properly solved. The fundamentals need to be first addressed. And that is where we are working, saying that if I can take all that mundane activity out, if I can give you the basic foundational information, insights properly, provide you with information that where things are going right, where things are going wrong, why is it going wrong, ahead of time before it goes wrong, so that you don't have that heartburn when the problem happens, and the availability is provided, reliability is provided. After that, transformation is much easier. I can't talk of transformation without some of these foundational elements being proper. And I'm not saying it's not proper. I'm saying give an assurance, it's like an insurance policy, right? Give me an assurance that everything is proper. And in the event if it fails, that you can tell me ahead of time that it's failing here or potential to fail here. And then we can figure out how to do further transformation, create bots, expand the AI to do a lot of other things. I think that's the same thing, because we are talking to I'm not talking to a bottling company, but I'm talking to a can manufacturing company. The leading can manufacturer is called Ball Metal Pack in the US. And that is the same problem, what you're saying, right? From state to state in the US, though he doesn't call it as an import-export problem, it is like a visa. I need to figure out how to move it from one place to the other. Logistics is a nightmare. Theft is a big problem. I don't even know that sitting in Denver, I'm able to figure out that what is happening in Atlanta is doing fine. The plant is doing fine. A lot of such unknowns which I keep getting hit by daily. If I can have a system which can give me one insight of everything, and I know that I'm peaceful, and I'm able to sleep peaceful, saying, okay, I know what is happening. Yeah, I know there's a problem. I know there's a potential problem. At least I know before it happens. That itself can solve a lot of my grief, a lot of my problem. I can represent myself better to the board and to my stakeholders. And I think you very well summed it up. And I think there are some definitive points which we could discuss offline to see how we can approach some of these problems. But I genuinely appreciate you being able to articulate the granularity of the problem which you're facing. It's really, really good to hear that. It's a ground reality which we have to address. So thank you for that. Yeah, Mr. Maulik, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Balaji. I think you summed it up very well. I think from a potentially looking at a solution perspective, are we talking about AI-driven tool chain which can really discover anomalies, come out with the predictions and so on and so forth? Or can I, in a way, sum it up as the future of work? Is it something from a discovery perspective? Chandra, I think if we can really, both of you can really sum it up in terms of your experiences working with global customers.
Yeah.
And see how we can really help for now some of our Indian colleagues. Actually.
I think if you really look at originally how Gartner had started to frame this whole AI, right? And I'm not saying that they are the best in the world and hence we have to follow them. But what I'm saying is some of the experts which were talking represented AI to primarily provide what they call a single pane of glass, or then move to single pane of action. The idea there was like exactly like what Vinod said, right? Being able to provide me foundational elements of saying, here is my enterprise and here is how it's working. I mean, I could be having the most shabbiest of enterprise, but at least if I know where it is not right and where I have to focus when I get up in the morning, that itself is a big relief for me. If you really look at it, that's how and why the whole AI ops industry started. And then, of course, the technology started enhancing itself so quickly that people went to a lot more different, newer ways of doing it and a lot more different ways of identifying problems and figuring it out. I think in a nutshell, what I would say is, how do I find where the problem is? How do I find what is the root of the problem? How do I find, based on what I have found, I can forecast what I can forecast going forward? How do I predict how things are happening to an extent of confidence, right? And more importantly, if I find a problem, how do I suggest how to remediate it? If I'm able to provide that, added to a larger insight into the performance of the entire enterprise in a nutshell, and keep the CXO heartache away, saying that I don't know what I don't know, I think AI Ops would have done its bit quite well. And that's what I'm hearing from a lot of the people in this call, a lot of the experts who have spoken in this call. And it's so heartening that every time either a Vinod or a Farhan or an Atanu or a Prakash or a Manjunath have shared some of their ground reality problem, and I'm actually able to relate it to somewhere else where we have fixed it or where we have addressed it. Right. It was not like I'm entering a new territory, number one. Number two, the other thing which I want to leave on the table is the reason why we actually collaborated with IIT Madras primarily was, one, they are leading in AI ML from a technology perspective. Two, we actually want to solve industry problems. So we started off with AI Ops. Gavs actually wants to be an AI company, and we want to solve industry problems. And today what I heard from the experts are actually industry problems, right? While there are commonalities which are there across all of the leaders who spoke, there are definitely specific nuances of the problem. And the professor would have been really excited to hear some of these things. So overall, I genuinely appreciate all of you, the readers, one, taking time to participate and share your views amidst the busy schedule. I'm sure you're having thousands of mails coming in and thousands of calls coming in to address, but taking time to address. Second, expressing at a ground reality level what is happening in industry. And third, most importantly, engaging in a conversation rather than just saying, I have said my point, don't know what to do types, and you engaging in a conversation. I think that was very resounding. So I would sincerely thank you all for taking your time and sharing the points. We will, as an organization, get in touch with you without disturbing you too much and see if we can partner and work on something. We have some ideas from what we spoke today, but it's interesting, and we will definitely take it forward. And that's how I would sum it up. From
absolutely, I think that was a good insight to the one hour discussion. Ipsita, you wanted to add up anything and really?
No, nothing from our side. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and we look forward to staying connected with you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Balaji.
Thank you, Balaji.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate all of you joining.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks,
Vinod.
so
be safe and be well. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you, Vinod. Hope all well.
All well.
Thank you. Thank you all.
See all of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maulia. Thank you for moderating the conversation. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Bye-bye.